The whisper that stopped the room. The great chamber of the Galactic Council was alive with murmurs and bright lights. Hundreds of species sat in the circular hall, their eyes fixed on the center stage where humans stood, small compared to the towering forms of other races. The walls glowed with a soft silver shine, and banners of every world hung above like silent witnesses. The air was heavy, thick with the tension of old grudges and fragile peace. The humans had come to make a plea, but no one expected what was about to be revealed. The human ambassador, a man with sharp eyes and a calm voice, carried a small metal case in his hands. When he opened it, a flicker of moving images filled the chamber. Gasps spread across the alien rows as the images showed cages, cold steel cages. Inside them sat small human children with frightened eyes and weak bodies. Some clutched each other, some cried silently, and one child reached toward the camera. As if begging, the hall grew restless, whispers rising like a storm. Then the silence was cut by a voice, soft, yet carrying more weight than thunder. An alien leader, tall and cloaked in deep blue robes, leaned forward, his scaled face pale in shock. "You put human children in cages?" he whispered. The words were not shouted, but they spread through the chamber like fire. Every ear caught them. Every translator carried the meaning across languages, and the council froze. For a long moment, no one breathed. The alien leader's question was not asked to the humans. It was asked to the chamber itself, to the guilty ones hidden among them. The humans stood silently, their faces hard with controlled anger. The ambassador said nothing. He did not need to, because the images spoke for him. The council's leader, a grand creature with wings folded, like golden sails, shifted uncomfortably. Murmurs turned into arguments. Some aliens stood, shouting in their own tongues. Others shook their heads in denial. The blue-robed leader's eyes narrowed as he rose to his full height, towering over. Most, his gaze swept across the room, searching, judging, demanding an answer. The silence after his whisper was like the edge of a blade. Then someone laughed, a harsh, metallic laugh from the shadows of the chamber. All eyes turned to a delegate from a powerful empire. His mouth curled in arrogance. "They are only humans," he sneered. "Creatures of war and chaos. What better place for their offspring than behind bars?" A roar of outrage filled the chamber. Half the species shouted in disgust. The other half sat in silence, their loyalties unclear. The humans did not flinch. Their ambassador kept his stance calm, but his fists were tight at his sides. The blue-robed leader's voice cut through the noise again, louder this time. "Children are sacred, no matter the species." His words echoed, carrying an ancient authority that even enemies hesitated to challenge. The chamber trembled with the weight of his anger. For generations, humans had been seen as dangerous, unpredictable, but now the council was seeing something different. Not warriors, not invaders, but a people whose young were suffering. The human ambassador finally spoke, his voice steady, his words simple. "Judge us as you will," he said, "but judge those who put our children in cages more harshly." He stepped back, letting the images linger in the air, every flicker of a child's fear cutting into the conscience of the gathered leaders. The silence grew painful, broken only by the sound of shifting robes and scraping claws. The alien leader in blue robes looked around. His whisper had already planted seeds of panic, of guilt, of fear. He knew the council was not ready for what came next, but the humans were. The ambassador closed the case. The images faded, and the last thing the council saw was the child's hand reaching through the bars. The chamber erupted, voices crashing together, shouts in 1,000 languages. Some demanding justice, others demanding silence. The blue-robed leader did not sit back down. He remained standing, his eyes burning. His whisper now turned into a vow. "This will not be forgotten," he said. The humans exchanged silent glances, for they knew this was only the beginning. And as the arguments rose like a storm, the truth spread. Fear had entered the council, and panic was only a breath away. The unseen evidence, The chamber had not calmed. The echoes of shouting still bounced from the silver walls. The humans stood quietly at the center, letting the storm of voices rage above them. Some alien delegates demanded silence. Others demanded the humans be punished for daring to accuse. Anyone at all? The blue-robed leader remained standing, his hands gripping the edge of the council table, his eyes burning with the weight of truth. But the human ambassador was not finished. Slowly, he placed his hand on the case again, his voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. "What you saw," he said, "was only the beginning." The hall went quiet in a ripple, whispers fading into uneasy silence. The ambassador pressed a small switch on the case, and new images filled the air. This time the cages were shown from above, rows upon rows, stretching into darkness like endless prisons. The camera moved down the line, showing not only human children, but alien children too. Some with scales, some with feathers, some with glowing eyes dimmed by fear. The sight sent a shiver across the chamber. Species who thought themselves untouched gasped in horror, recognizing their own young locked beside humans. Mothers covered their faces. Fathers growled in rage. Whole delegations rose to their feet. The ambassador's voice was steady, but beneath it ran a river of grief. "You see now," he said, "this is not only against humanity. This is against life itself." The images flickered, showing guards in heavy armor walking the halls, their faces hidden, their weapons raised against children too weak to stand. A small alien child was pushed down, crying out, and a human boy tried to help him, only to be struck with a baton. The chamber trembled with fury. Chairs overturned, voices roared in dozens of languages. The blue-robed leader lifted his arm, and silence fell again. His voice was deep now, no longer a whisper but a command. "Who did this?" he demanded. "Which empire? Which council member allowed this?" But no one answered. Eyes shifted, some narrowed in suspicion, others dropped in shame. The golden-winged leader, who presided over the council, finally rose, his wings unfolding slowly like a storm. Spreading across the sky, he looked down at the humans with cold, calculating eyes. "These accusations," he said, "are grave, but proof must be more than pictures." The human ambassador met his gaze without fear. "Then you shall have proof," he said, with a second. Click, the images changed again, this time to recordings. Voices filled the chamber, deep and cruel, orders spoken by unseen commanders. "Keep them locked," one voice said. "Break their will. They will obey." Another voice laughed. "Let them cry. Let them beg. The parents will do anything when they see their little ones suffer." The recordings twisted through the air like poison. Some aliens covered their ears. Others roared in anger. Many glared across the chamber, already suspecting who was guilty. The ambassador let the silence linger before speaking again. "We are not here to beg," he said. "We are here to show you what has been hidden, what some among you already knew." Gasps spread again. Eyes darted across the room, accusing, questioning, afraid. The blue-robed leader turned his gaze toward a cluster of delegates draped in black armor. They did not rise. They did not speak, their silence louder than words. The ambassador pointed toward them, his voice rising for the first time. "These ones know," he said. "They are part of it." The black-armored delegates shifted. Their leader sneered. "Lies," he spat. "Fabrications, tricks made by human hands." But the recordings still echoed. The images still burned in every eye. The chamber began to fracture. Lines drawn in silence and in whispers. Some shouted that the humans were right. Others claimed it was a trap. The golden-winged leader raised his hand, but for once, the chamber did not obey. The blue-robed leader leaned closer, his voice low, carrying across the silence. "If this is true," he said, "then war is coming." His words struck like lightning. The chamber shook with their meaning. The humans did not smile, did not gloat. They stood as if carved from stone, waiting. knowing that the truth had already done its work. The images faded once more, leaving only silence, broken hearts, and the memory of children's eyes staring through cold steel bars. The black-armored delegates whispered among themselves, their faces grim, their eyes burning with hidden fire, and as the chamber erupted again into chaos, one thought spread like shadow among the council. The humans had brought more than evidence. They had brought a storm. The council divides. The Galactic Council had become a battlefield of voices. Delegates shouted across the chamber, claws slammed against metal desks, wings snapped open, tails lashed in fury. The humans stood firm in the center, silent, watching. As their truth tore the mighty chamber apart, the blue-robed leader remained standing, his sharp eyes never leaving the cluster of black-armored delegates. He knew guilt when he saw it, and they wore it like a second skin. The golden-winged presider tried to call for order, but no one listened, his voice drowned beneath the rising storm of rage. Some delegates rose to defend the humans, their voices trembling with shock and fury. "They showed us our own children," cried one feathered alien, her wings quivering. "My daughter was there." "Do you deny that?" another shouted. "If they can cage humans today, they can cage us tomorrow." But others struck back, their faces twisted with fear or pride. "Humans are dangerous," a scaled ambassador roared. "They manipulate. They twist images. This is their trick." The black-armored delegates stood slowly, their leader sneering with cold confidence. "Do not be deceived," he said. "The humans have always wanted power. They lie to turn us against one another. They seek war, nothing more." Gasps filled the room. Some delegates nodded in agreement, fear clouding their judgment. The chamber was dividing, lines drawn between those who believed the evidence and those who wanted to bury it. The human ambassador finally raised his voice, calm but filled with fire. "You can argue, you can deny, but the children are still in cages," he said. "While you speak, they suffer." The words struck deep, cutting through the noise, but not enough to end the storm. The golden-winged presider lifted his arms, light flashing from his feathers, forcing silence for a moment. "This council will not dissolve into chaos," he declared. "We will examine the evidence further. We will—" He stopped, his voice broken by the sudden dimming of the lights. Gasps filled the chamber as the glowing walls flickered, screens sputtered, and the images of the cages vanished. The ambassador's case trembled in his hands, its power cut. Someone had sabotaged the chamber. Panic spread like fire, voices crying. Out in fear and suspicion, the black-armored delegates smirked, their leader raising his chin. "Convenient, is it not?" he said. "Their proof vanishes the moment it is questioned." The human ambassador slammed his hand on the case, his calm finally cracking. "You did this," he shouted. "You fear." The truth. The chamber exploded again, half roaring in outrage at the sabotage, half turning suspicious eyes on the humans. The blue-robed leader bared his fangs, his voice rising above the storm. "Enough," he roared. "Do you think we are blind? We all saw the cages. We all heard the voices." His robes flared as he strode toward the center, placing himself beside the human ambassador. "If the evidence is gone, it is because someone here fears justice," he said, "and I will not stand silent." The presider's golden wings folded tight, his face unreadable, his silence heavier than words. Some whispered that he knew more than he let on, others that he was stalling. The humans felt the weight of 1,000 eyes on them, some filled with hope, others with suspicion. The ambassador lifted his head, meeting the gaze of every delegate he could. "We came here not to beg," he said, his voice steady once more. "We came to show you who we are. We do not abandon our children. We do not abandon yours. If you will not stand with us, then know this: humanity will stand alone, but we will not stop." The words echoed in the chamber, heavy as stone. For a moment, silence reigned. Then a slow, mocking clap broke it. The black-armored leader was clapping, his smile sharp as a blade. "Brave words," he said, "but empty without proof, and proof has vanished." His eyes gleamed as he leaned forward. This council should vote, here and now, whether to cast. Humans out. Shock rippled through the chamber, voices rising in protest, others shouting in agreement. The presider remained silent, his golden wings casting long shadows across the floor. The blue-robed leader turned his gaze toward him, waiting, demanding, but the presider did not move, did not speak. The chamber was fracturing, the great council tearing itself apart, and deep within the shadows, the black-armored delegates exchanged subtle signals, their plan unfolding as chaos grew. The humans stood surrounded, their evidence destroyed, their allies uncertain, their enemies bold. And as the storm of voices rose again, one thing was clear. The council had divided, and the fracture was only beginning, the human resolve. The council chamber was breaking under its own weight. Shouts shook the silver walls, the smell of fear filled the air, and yet the humans remained still. The ambassador closed the powerless case, placing it carefully on the floor as if it no longer mattered. His face was pale but unbroken, his eyes sharp as stone. The blue-robed leader stood beside him, silent, waiting, sensing something in the human's stance. At last, the ambassador spoke, his voice low but steady. "You can take away our evidence. You can call us liars, but you cannot change what we are," he said. "And you cannot change what we do when our children are threatened." The words carried across the chamber, slicing through the roar of voices. Delegates turned, some sneering, others curious, many silent. The ambassador looked around, his eyes meeting alien mothers and fathers who trembled with the memory of seeing their own young locked in cages. "When humans see a child in pain," he said, "we do not ask whose child it is. We do not ask what species. We act because a child is sacred." His words struck deeper than images, deeper than recordings, because they carried no proof, only conviction. The blue-robed leader nodded slowly, his arms folding across his chest. "Yes," he said softly. "I have seen this in them. They guard their young with a fury that frightens even their enemies." The presider finally stirred, his golden wings spreading slightly, his eyes narrowing at the human ambassador. "You speak as if your people are saints," he said coldly. "Yet history tells us you are conquerors, destroyers." The ambassador did not flinch. His voice grew stronger. "We are flawed," he admitted. "We are reckless. We fight too easily, but for one thing we never waver. We protect our own. And more than that, we protect those who cannot protect themselves." The words echoed, a heartbeat pulsing through the chamber. The feathered mother from earlier rose again, her wings trembling. "My daughter was in those cages," she whispered. "It was a human boy who tried to shield her." Gasps spread, her words cutting through lies like fire. The black-armored delegates hissed and snarled, but their denial grew weaker, their shadows less certain. The ambassador stepped forward, his voice rising now with a new power. "We will not stop searching for them," he said. "We will not stop fighting for them. Even if the whole galaxy turns against us, humanity will not rest." The blue-robed leader's hand struck the council table with a sharp crack. "I believe them," he declared. "I have seen many species, but only humans would stand here, outnumbered and accused, and still speak of protecting others." His voice rolled across the chamber, and for the first time, hope flickered in human eyes. The presider's golden wings folded tighter, his expression unreadable. Whispers spread, some calling for support of the humans, others warning of danger. The black-armored leader sneered, stepping forward, his voice dripping with venom. "They protect their young, yes, but do not be deceived. They would burn worlds to save them. They would drag us all into war." The ambassador met his gaze without fear. "If war comes," he said, "it will not be because of us. It will be because of those who cage the innocent." The room grew heavy, every word pulling the council deeper into the divide. Some delegates stood with humans, others turned away. But none could ignore the fire now burning in the chamber. The ambassador took one last breath, his voice softer now. "If you cannot see the truth, Then remember this, he said. The humans will act, with or without your counsel. We will find those children. We will free them. And the galaxy will remember who stood in silence while they suffered. The chamber shivered with the weight of his vow. The presider finally spoke again, his voice like cold steel. Then you declare yourselves beyond this council, he said. So be it. Gasps rose. The humans faced exile, their future uncertain. But the ambassador did not tremble. He only nodded. We were alone before, he said. We will endure. Again, the blue-robed leader turned sharply toward the presider, fury in his eyes. You would cast them out when their only crime is courage, he demanded. The presider did not answer, only raised his wings higher, his silence a blade. The council was split beyond repair, voices breaking into arguments, shouts, and cries. The humans stood at the center of the storm, unbroken, their resolve brighter than ever, and in the shadows, unseen, the black-armored delegates exchanged dark smiles. They had stirred chaos, but they had also awakened something far more dangerous. Human resolve. The storm breaks. The council chamber had become a storm of voices. Every corner of the vast hall shook with shouts. Wings flared, claws struck the tables, weapons rattled against armored hides. The presider's golden wings spread wide in a silent warning, but no one listened. The humans remained in the center, calm but surrounded by growing hostility. The ambassador's jaw tightened. He could see it, the shift from words to violence, the tipping of the fragile balance. The blue-robed leader's eyes narrowed, his instincts sharpening like blades. He too sensed what was coming. The black-armored delegates stood tall, their leader's smile sharp and cruel. He raised his hand ever so slightly, and the chamber's chaos turned into something worse. From the shadows of the council doors came soldiers in the same black armor, marching in with synchronized steps, their weapons glowing faintly in the dim light. Gasps rippled across the room. Some delegates leapt from their seats, others froze in shock. This is not council business, the presider growled, but his voice was drowned out as the soldiers spread in a ring around the humans, the ambassadors. Hand clenched at his side. His people had no weapons, no shields, only their voices and their will. The blue-robed leader stepped forward, his robe sweeping behind him, his body towering before the soldiers. You dare bring soldiers into this chamber, he thundered. This is sacred ground, the black-armored leader sneered, his voice dripping with arrogance. Sacred ground means nothing when the council has already fallen apart, he said. These humans bring division. We bring order. The soldiers lifted their weapons, aiming directly at the human delegation. Panic spread. Like fire, delegates scrambled back. Some fled toward the exits. Others shouted for calm. The presider's golden wings flared brighter, but he did not move to stop the soldiers, his silence as heavy as betrayal. The ambassador took a step forward, his voice rising, calm but filled. With steel, you will fire on us here, he said, before the eyes of every world. The black-armored leader's smile widened. If that is what it takes, he said, then yes. The tension snapped. Chaos erupted. A chair was thrown. Across the chamber, wings beat the air, claws raked against stone. The storm had broken. The soldiers lunged, but the blue-robed leader struck first, his massive hand ripping a weapon from one soldier's grip and shattering it in two. Cowards, he roared. You would murder children's defenders in the heart of the council. The chamber exploded into battle. Delegates who had stood with the humans leapt to their side. Others sided with the black-armored faction, weapons clashing, cries echoing. The humans were pushed back, their ambassador shielding one of his aides as a soldier's blade sliced the air. The aide stumbled, but the ambassador pulled him to his feet, his eyes blazing. We stand, he shouted. No matter what! The blue-robed leader fought like a storm, his robes shredded, his scaled fists striking with crushing force. But even he began to falter as more soldiers poured in, the presider watched from above, his wings casting golden light. But he still did not intervene. The humans were cornered. their backs pressed to the cold wall, surrounded by armored soldiers. One soldier raised his weapon high, the energy blade crackling inches from the ambassador's chest. The black-armored leader's voice rang out, triumphant. "This is the end of the human lie," he declared, "and the end of their place among us." The ambassador did not close his eyes. He did not bow. He only looked at the chamber, at the faces still watching. "If you kill us," he said, his voice steady, "then every world will know you fear the truth." The blade hovered, the silence unbearable. The blue-robed leader roared, again charging forward despite wounds burning across his body. His massive hand struck the soldier's arm, knocking the blade away in a shower of sparks. The chamber quaked with the force of his fury. "You will not touch them," he bellowed. "Not while I still stand." The soldiers hesitated, their circle broken, their leader's smirk fading into a snarl. The delegates who had been frozen now surged, some hurling themselves into the fight, others crying for peace. The storm had broken fully, the chamber a battlefield of fear, betrayal, and desperate resolve. And in that chaos, one truth became clear. Humanity was no longer just accused strangers, they were symbols of defiance. The black-armored leader's eyes burned with rage, but beneath it flickered something else, something dangerous. He had failed to crush them quickly. And now the chamber was watching, divided but awake. The humans were still alive, still standing, and that alone was enough to shift the tide. But the storm was not over. It was only beginning. The turning tide, the council chamber was drenched in chaos. Smoke from shattered weapons curled toward the high ceiling. Cries of fury and fear echoed through the silver walls, and the banners of 100 worlds trembled in the storm. The humans were still pressed against the wall, their breaths ragged, their bodies bruised but unbroken. The ambassador wiped blood from his brow, his eyes never leaving the soldiers who surrounded them. The blue-robed leader staggered, his great body scarred and bleeding, yet his spirit burned. Brighter than fire, he turned to the humans, his voice hoarse but fierce. "Stand firm," he growled. "The tide has not turned yet, but it will." The black-armored leader's sneer split the air like a blade. "You are finished," he spat. "Your allies bleed. Your proof is gone. The council sees you as liars." "And chaos bringers," the ambassador met his eyes, unflinching. "Truth does not vanish because you fear it," he said. "It waits, and it will rise again." The soldiers surged forward, weapons raised. But the blue-robed leader planted himself in their path. His roar shook the chamber, shaking the banners loose from the walls. "No more lies, no more cages," he bellowed. "If you want them, you must go through me." The soldiers faltered, just for a heartbeat, because they saw not a single alien standing alone, but the embodiment of something greater. A delegate with wings of crimson feathers stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "He speaks truth," she cried. "Children were caged. I saw my own daughter in their images. Humans did not create that." Another, a scaled warrior with a jagged crest, slammed his spear against the floor. "Enough deception," he roared. "We stand with those who defend the innocent." One by one voices rose. Delegates who had trembled in fear now stepping forward. Some held no weapons, only their bodies, their voices. But in that moment it was enough. The presider's golden wings flared, his face darkening. "Sit down," he commanded, his voice like thunder, but fewer obeyed him now. The chamber had changed, its balance shifting before his very eyes. The blue-robed leader raised his clawed hand high, blood dripping from his wounds, his voice booming above the roar. "For the children," he shouted, "for all who cannot fight for themselves." The words ripped through the chamber, carried in every translator, burned into every heart. The soldiers hesitated again, their circle weakening as more delegates stepped forward to shield the humans. The ambassador felt the shift too, the change in the air. It was not victory yet. But it was no longer defeat. The humans were no longer alone. The black-armored leader snarled, his composure cracking. "You would betray order for them," he spat at the blue-robed leader. "You would throw away peace for these animals." The Blue-robed leader bared his teeth, his scales gleaming through torn robes. "You speak of order while hiding cages in the dark," he said. "Your peace is nothing but chains, and I will break them." With a roar, he charged, his massive body slamming into the nearest soldiers, scattering them like leaves in a storm. Delegates joined him, some with weapons drawn, others with only their fists or wings or claws. The humans stepped forward too, fighting with nothing but desperate courage, striking, pushing, surviving. The chamber was no longer a place of debate. It had become a battlefield of justice against silence, of hope against fear. The presider rose from his high seat, golden feathers burning with light, but his eyes showed unease. His control was slipping. The council no longer bent to his command. The black-armored leader screamed orders, his voice sharp and desperate, but fewer obeyed with each passing breath. The ambassador lifted his voice again, strong despite his wounds. "You see now," he shouted, "we do not stand only for ourselves. We stand for every child, every world, every voice that was silenced." His words struck deeper than any blade. Delegates who had remained frozen began to rise, their hesitation crumbling under the weight of truth. The tide was turning. The black-armored soldiers, once confident, now fought with fear in their eyes, surrounded not just by humans, but by a growing wall of allies. The blue-robed leader lifted his voice one last time, raw and thunderous. "Remember their faces," he cried. "Remember the cages, and fight, and—" The chamber answered, a roar of many species rising as one. The storm was no longer against the humans. It was against those who had hidden in the shadows. The turning tide had come, but as the black-armored leader fell back, his eyes gleamed with something darker than defeat. The battle was not finished, not yet. The worst was still to come. The dawn of a new alliance. The council chamber was a battlefield of broken stone and shattered pride. Smoke drifted through the high arches. Banners hung torn, and the once orderly hall now trembled under the weight of history. The humans stood. In the center, bloodied, bruised, yet unbowed, around them stood those who had chosen truth over silence, allies born not from treaties but from shared conviction. The blue-robed leader leaned heavily on his staff, his great frame wounded yet unbroken. His eyes still sharp across the chamber. The black-armored leader staggered back, his soldiers retreating in confusion, their once perfect formation in ruins. The presider remained above, his golden wings spread wide, his face carved with fury, as he realized control had slipped beyond his grasp. The ambassador stepped forward, his voice carrying through the smoke and chaos. "This council was meant to protect the weak," he said, "but it caged them instead. Today that ends." His words rang against the broken walls, carried to every corner, to every listening ear. The blue-robed leader raised his clawed hand, his voice booming. "The cages will be broken, the children freed," he declared. No more shadows, no more lies. For the first time, the chamber did not divide. It united, a wave of voices rising in agreement. Even those who had doubted before found themselves unable to deny what their hearts now demanded. The black-armored leader hissed, rage burning in his eyes. "You fools," he spat. "You will bring war to every world. Do you not see? The cages are needed to keep order, to keep power." But his words fell flat, met with nothing but disgust. The scaled warrior slammed his spear against the ground, sparks flying, order built. "On children's pain is no order at all," he roared. "It is tyranny, and it dies today." The black-armored leader's soldiers faltered, their resolve crumbling under the weight of defiance around them. The presider rose, his wings blazing like a false sun. "You think this council belongs to you?" he shouted. "It belongs to me, to those strong enough to rule it." But the high chamber no longer trembled to his voice. Delegates turned their backs, their loyalty gone. The blue-robed leader pointed his staff toward the golden-winged presider, his voice hard as stone. "Your reign is over," he said. "The council belongs to those who defend the innocent, not those who chain them." The presider's wings folded in fury, but he knew the truth. He was alone. The ambassador stepped forward again, lifting the small case, its power returning with a soft glow now that the saboteurs had fallen. He pressed the switch, and once more the images appeared. The cages, the children, the suffering. But this time the council did not look away. They stared, and their hearts hardened with resolve. The ambassador's voice was steady, filled with unshakable fire. "These are not just human children," he said. "They are yours, ours, the galaxy's. We will find them, we will free them, and if we must fight the shadows to do it, then we will." A silence fell, not of fear, but of unity. Then the blue-robed leader raised his staff high. His voice thunderous, "For the children," he roared. The chamber answered as one. "For the children," voices of 100 worlds cried. The black-armored leader screamed in rage, his soldiers breaking ranks and fleeing, their power shattered, the presider's golden wings dimmed, the light fading. As he vanished into the shadows, his rule broken, the council was changed forever. The ambassador lowered the case, exhaustion in his eyes, but victory burning in his heart. He turned to his people, whispering only one sentence: "We are not alone." Anymore, the blue-robed leader placed his massive hand on the ambassador's shoulder, his eyes fierce but warm. "Today you showed us what it means to be human," he said. "You reminded us what it means to fight for more than ourselves." The chamber's broken silence gave way to something new. Hope. It was fragile, wounded, but it lived. The council had not ended. It had been reborn. The humans had entered it as accused liars, as outcasts. But now they stood as protectors, as leaders, as symbols. The children would be freed, the cages broken, the shadows dragged into the light, and every world would remember the day when humanity, against all odds, stood unbroken in the heart of the galaxy. The dawn of a new alliance had come, and at its heart burned a truth that could never again be silenced. Humanity would fight anyone, face anything, endure everything, for the sake of their children, and for the children of all.